Hi, my name is Juliana McKenzie, and today I am doing video number 2, which is our final video presentation. I chose a problem which is chapter 9, problem number 1, and I'm just going to begin by sharing my screen so we can get started. So first, I'm going to read the problem so we know what key aspects we need and how to start building a table. Bob's Rawhide Company has a dividend payout ratio of 45%. Next year, it will earn 75 cents per share and have a return on equity of 12%. The shareholders' required return is 8%. To begin, I'm just going to build a simple table, and I'm just going to name it Bob's Rawhide Company for now. I'm going to start by listing some of the aspects we know. We know earnings per share. We know the dividend payout ratio. We know return on equity, and we also know the required return. Now I'm going to fill these out. This is 75 cents. This is 45%. This is 12%. And this is 8%. All right, here we have it. I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to calculate the retention ratio, which is going to be 1. So delete equals 1 minus the payout ratio. Shouldn't be right. 1 minus the payout ratio. 55%. All right, so now we can begin. I am going to format this so that it looks nice and it's easy to read. We are going to do that. We're also going to bold it, and we're going to center it across the selection. There we have it. I'm going to even bring this out a little bit more. Okay, to begin, we are going to calculate the growth rate using just the growth rate first. The growth rate is return on equity times 1 minus the dividend ratio. So we're going to do return on equity times 1 minus the dividend payout ratio, which is also the retention ratio. Things happen here. There we have it. All right, I'm going to highlight that because that is the answer to part A. Moving forward, we are going to use the earnings model to find the value of the stock. So to begin to find this, we're going to start with retained earnings. And to find retained earnings, it is earnings per share times the retention ratio. Next, we're going to find the value without growth. This is going to be earnings per share divided by the retention ratio. Sorry, the required return. Next, we are going to find the value with growth. This is going to be retained earnings. So it is right here. Times, we're going to put double parentheses, ROE divided by the required return, parentheses, minus 1, divided by the required return minus the growth rate. There we have it. And now that we found those things, we can find the value of the stock, which is simply the sum of the value without growth and the value with growth, using the sum function there. To make these more readable and just look nicer for our table, I'm going to do a format, and I'm just going to put them to 2 decimal places. All right, here we are. I'm also going to put a $sign on them because we're working with dollars. So I'm going to highlight this because that is the answer to problem B. That was using the earnings model. And to make that clear, I'm going to rename this. All right, make this a little bigger so it looks a little nicer. Okay, next we have to construct a data table that shows how the growth rate and the value of the stock will change if the ROE ranges between 10% and 20% and 1% increments. All right, I'm going to start to set this up. To begin, I'm going to take the ROE, growth rate, and value of the stock. I'm going to directly reference those cells. So B4, and then we have B7, and we have finally B11. I'm now going to do a custom format so that these are going to read ROE, growth rate, and the value of the stock instead of the number. So there we have ROE. Here we have growth rate. I'm going to capitalize this so it looks better. And finally, we have the value of the stock. All right. So Excel will read those cells as the number that's in them. There's just a custom format to be Word so that it looks nicer. All right, now I'm going to enter all of the percentages in 1% increments. All right. There we have 10 to 20%. Next, to find these values, we are going to use a function. So I'm going to highlight D2 to F13, and I am going to go into data. I'm going to do a what if analysis and data table, select data table. We're going to be using column input cells because our values are in a column. We're next going to be taking the ROE because that is what's being affected. And this should pop out different values. Here we have it. So as simple as that, we can see that it becomes negative after a certain point. And if you look further, you can see they become negative when the growth rate exceeds 8%. This is because the required return is 8%. Therefore, it is not sustainable anymore. So you can see that in the value of the stocks right now. I'm going to make this look a little pretty, and then I'm going to put it in a scatter. I'm going to put it in a scatter plot so that we can see that more clearly. So let me just format these really quickly. Highlight them. Format cells, order. I've done this a few times now. We're going to fill. We're going to do center because we just want them centered in their cell. And then I'm going to come back here and bold them. All right, so there we have our new table. This is going to be really handy when we're making this new graph. Okay, so to make the scatter chart, we want this to show the relationship between the stock and the ROE. Therefore, I'm going to select all these values. I'm going to press Control, and then I'm going to select all of these because those are the two values we want to compare. I'm going to go to Insert, Scatter Chart, and I am going to move this down a little bit. I'm going to enter a scatter with straight lines. All right, so now we can observe this relationship, but first I am going to title it ROE versus value of the stock. I'm also going to insert some chart labels. So we're going to enter the titles and I'm going to title them. So this right here is the stock price. And this is the ROE. I'm also going to format these so that they look a little bit better and they're easier to read. I'm going to do 2 percentages, and then these are percents. And I am going to make it so they have more decimals, and then these are dollars. All right. There we have it. This made the graph look a little bit better as well. I am going to move this around so it can be right next to it this way. All righty. We can see there is a linear relationship. We can also see that once the growth rate exceeds 8%, it becomes negative. You can see that by the relationship right here. All right, finally, we're going to go to the final part of this problem, which is using the constant growth model. What is the value of the stock? So I'm going to label this the growth model. And here we go again. I am going to center it across the selection. I'm going to use the border and I'm going to fill this so it looks better. I am also going to bold. There we go. All right, let's begin. I'm actually going to copy paste all of this down because this is the same information we'll be needing. And it just makes it easier. And then I'm going to do no fill here because that's not what we're observing right here. So for the growth model, we don't have to do those extra steps. It's a different calculation, but it should bring the same answer. So let's check. Value of the stock. Here, we're going to be doing the earnings per share times the dividend payout ratio divided by the required return minus the growth rate. And there we have it. I am going to format this so that it's only 2 decimal places, like the same as above. And we can see that they are the same. I'll put a $sign on it, and I'm going to highlight that right here. All right, so here I've calculated everything and I've finished the problem. I hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, that is it.